Hi, and welcome to this webinar on creating thought leader focused content marketing campaigns. My name is Dave Reske, CEO of Nowspeed Marketing. And joining me today is Tucker Kaplan, who's our Director of Content Marketing. And Tucker, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Excited to be here, David.
Yeah, so we put a lot of effort into thinking through new strategies for creating thought leader focused content marketing campaigns. And over the next 30 minutes, we'll be sharing with you some of our ideas and experience that'll hopefully help you put together more interesting, more comprehensive, more engaging content marketing programs that should engage your audience. So first of all, what are we really talking about with content marketing? So content marketing is a strategy that involves creating and sharing digital content to attract, engage, and retain an audience. This is all about creating the content that you believe your target audience needs, that's specific to where they are in the buying process, the products, the issues, the challenges that they face, in order to engage them and move them into the marketing funnel. So you want to have content, things maybe like audio and video, and images and blogs and social media. And this has become a very popular form of marketing over the last 10 to 20 years. Content marketing is old as ever, but it's become more and more popular because in the digital age, it's easier to create content, it's easier to get engagement, you can deliver it inexpensively. You don't have to build expensive catalogs and mail them out to people. You can put them on your website. So content marketing is a really effective strategy for many organizations. But there's some challenges with it. So in our experience, Tucker and I have been doing content marketing for many years for many different clients. And we see a lot of things that are broken in the content marketing area today. And some of those things are that, our clients are often not leveraging the C-suite. And by that, we mean that they're often employing junior people who look at the lowest level kind of issues and content and produce a lot of stuff out there, but they're not really engaging the leaders in a company who have great ideas, great opinions, great experience in order to put together the best content. So that can be a challenge. And often these people are busy and hard to reach. And so it's kind of sometimes hard to engage them, but that's a big miss in our experience. And also another issue that we see is that many organizations are not really providing thought leadership content. And that's why we're calling this program thought leadership focused content marketing. A lot of content is very low level. It might be SEO bait. It might be focused around specific keywords. It might just be out there to maintain a schedule on social media. It's just not that engaging and powerful and interesting. So companies are not really challenging themselves to think deeply about the content that their audience really needs in order to set the company apart and engage with the company. Another challenge we see is that many times the content's boring and generic, and nobody wants to admit that their content is boring, but sometimes it is. It's just a 500-word generic blog post that gets put out there and put on the website, and you check the box and you got it done, but nobody really thinks it's lighting the world on fire, and it just becomes a cookie cutter kind of operation. And if you may not make every one of your content pieces the most exciting, but if you continue with this kind of a boring strategy, eventually you're going to lose your audience and people really won't respect you for it. So kind of avoid being boring and generic. The other thing we see is sometimes clients take the opposite approach and they say, man, I'm going to do this amazing piece of content. I'm going to pay $10,000 or $20,000. I'm going to hire a great video company. I'm going to do this amazing and expensive thing. And that's great. But often what happens then is you do one thing a quarter or every year, you produce one thing, and it's not enough to really engage your audience in a long term. Nothing wrong with spending money on great content, but often it can, if you put too much money into it, then you don't produce enough content to really cover all areas, every product, the whole buying process, and every customer segment that you could be going after. So related to that, sometimes also content marketing takes too long to produce. So it can, we're not, my picture here, we're not making fine wine here. We don't have to age these pieces for 12 years to be at their best. You can really produce high quality content these days and have it come out quickly. So, if you take too long, 18 revision cycles, take 6 months to produce the blog or the webinar, you don't get into a momentum, a rhythm to create effective content that really can make a difference. And another trap that we see people falling into is you create it for a single format. You say, well, really, I'm not in content marketing. I'm not doing content marketing, I'm doing blog production. I'm really just writing a blog and putting it on my website, putting it in a single format. And that can be, limiting for you. So if you think more broadly, and we're going to talk about strategy to create many different forms of derivative content from thought leadership ideas, you can get more bang for the buck with that core idea than thinking about producing a single format of content. And often that becomes something like a blog article. And then often it's hard to measure the results. So a lot of organizations get so focused on producing the content that they forget about what impact it can make. And so, you can get into a rhythm, be putting stuff out, but it's also super important to understand the goals for what you're trying to accomplish and the impact and measure the results along the way. So those are some of the common challenges that we've seen with our client. And Tucker, you live this day in and day out with our clients. So, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges that you see that the clients have, or maybe some stories that you've thought about?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that you just covered, but I think the challenge that's common across everybody is the challenge of creating high quality content and creating a lot of it. So our team always uses the quote, content is king, but consistency is queen. So it's really important to nail both of those things, or else you're really limiting the potential influence of your business. So, kind of like you mentioned with the expensive to produce, it's something that I see a lot with clients where the marketing team is given their marketing budget for the year or for the quarter. And what they do is they take a large chunk or a majority of that budget and they fly out a production team. They fly out senior members of the team to one location for a single day, sometimes even half a day for shooting, which, like you mentioned, can get pretty costly. And half a day of shooting can often turn into 10 minutes of usable marketing material. So you have a few really high quality videos on your products, which is great. And what companies will often do is they'll start sharing those videos on social and they'll see really great engagement to start. But as they continue to cycle through the same 3 clips, maybe they'll switch up the captions on the posts, but the engagement eventually dies down and the video becomes kind of white noise in the feed. So it's kind of like when an artist releases like an amazing song and the radio plays it every other song, and the song that people once loved, they grow pretty tired of it. It's kind of similar to the content that these businesses are creating. So that's where kind of the issue of content lifespan and avoiding stale really comes into play. There's no exact equation on how long it takes for a piece of content to become stale. But if you're kind of putting all of your eggs into one basket for a single quarter and running it through the entire way, it's not going to maintain the same level of effectiveness. For some clients I've worked with, they've spent all of this money upfront creating a few of these high quality videos, and then they release a new product, but they don't have the budget to create similar quality video, and it kind of gets put on the back burner until they eventually get more budget.
So it sounds like the secret, Tucker, is really to create quality and quantity without blowing all your budget on just a few things. You've got to have both of those,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to diminish like the value that these production crews that are coming in and taking high quality video provide, but it's one thing to take a small chunk of the budget and make that happen versus taking almost all of your budget and then having nothing left over.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a kind of a strategy to make that happen. So
Yeah.
share some ideas for doing this. So, our idea for the thought leader driven content marketing program is to really leverage the knowledge and experience of the C-suite by interviewing them on camera, and then creating significant stream of derivative content to engage the audience. That's really what it's all about. Engage the C-suite, get their ideas and thoughts on a regular basis, and then get derivative content producing. So, this, I'm going to talk about the structure, and then Tucker's going to talk about an example from Nowspeed as a case study and how we've done that, and how that can be laid out. So the idea of this strategy, and this is something you can do yourself, or you can engage a team like Nowspeed to do, is to really start with that thought leader interview, and that requires engaging the C-suite, engaging maybe the CEO, the CTO, CMO, and talking about key issues in the marketplace, talking about product leadership, talking about client strategies, client success stories. It could be a lot of things. It could be a vendor interview. It could be a partner interview. There's so many issues that most senior executives can talk about thoughtfully. So it's that thought leader interview. And by that way, that can be something that the CEO might use as a way to build a relationship with a vendor or a partner or a client or a customer. So those kind of interviews can not only be interesting to create content, but they can do another thing, which is build a relationship between a senior exec and another senior exec at a partner or customer company. So it starts with that kind of that core thought leader interview. And of course, you record it, right? So it becomes recorded. And if you do it in a format like what Tucker and I are doing today, it becomes inexpensive and easy. Now, it does require maybe some research, some thought, but it doesn't require a huge amount of time for knowledgeable senior people to be able to have those kind of conversations, those kind of interviews. And then from there, you start thinking about, well, where can we use that content? And that's where thinking about putting it into social media, putting it into specific channels like YouTube or podcast channels can be effective, putting it on your website, doing additional video post-production, using it for email, and even leveraging it for advertising can come in. And by doing that, you can start to think about a lot of derivative content. So for social media, you might want to put it out on multiple channels: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. In channels, there's lots of channels to distribute your video and audio and written content. Podcast channels are one way to do that. YouTube is another way to do that. On your website, you could be turning these interviews into blog articles and SEO optimizing them to get more organic traffic. Video, you can do in post-production. You could put together long form video, short form reels. Email, you can send it to your house list. You can you can promote the derivative content through email, like the blogs. You could even sum these things up in a newsletter. And from an advertising perspective, you can drive traffic to it with ads on your website. You can put together things like YouTube ads, and even leveraging for remarketing ads with other kinds of offers on landing pages. So many things. So one piece of core thought leadership interview content can make it easier and less expensive to create a lot of other opportunities. So Tucker, you've been doing this with Nowspeed for some time. We want to walk through a case study of how we've done this and just what these specific pieces takes. And I want you to talk about, like, what does it take to do some of this? So is this easy, and what are some of the practical steps involved in doing this?
So first, we really start with the raw footage that comes from either a Teams or Zoom recording, similar to what we're on right now. And we spend some time editing both the video and audio to make sure everything looks and sounds right. And this isn't super advanced editing. We're making some cuts, maybe adjusting some audio levels. And then we add our marketing in the now intro animation, along with kind of a generic soundtrack that starts off the video and also ends the video. From there, we take the finalized video and we upload it to YouTube. And we have a thumbnail template where we add the name of the episode along with the name and image of the guest that's being featured. We'll add an episode description to that, everything that YouTube requires. And then next, we'll take the finalized audio and we upload it to all podcast platforms like Podbean, Spotify, Apple Music. And then once the podcast is uploaded to all of those necessary platforms, that's when we create the landing page on our website. And on the landing page, we'll give a brief description of the episode. We'll highlight the guest, give you kind of a bio, a little bit about their background. And on that landing page as well, we link back to every other platform that you can consume the podcast. So we've got all of the podcast platforms, YouTube, so that people have an option to listen to it on whatever platform they prefer. Once we have the landing page set up, we go ahead and we put together an email that's essentially describing what the podcast is about, kind of gives you quick rundown about what you might learn from the episode. Again, we kind of give some background on the guest, and there we'll add a link to the YouTube video as well as the landing page. And then once we send out, I guess simultaneously, because we send out these social posts and the email around the same time, what we do is we actually take about a 30 to 60-second clip from the full episode. We'll add captions to it. And what that does is it really gives people a bit of a taste of the podcast in a short form video, so to see if it's something that they're interested in. And then ultimately we link back to the landing page where they can choose where they want to consume it. Then the last thing that we do here is we take the actual transcript from the video recording, and we'll take that and write a blog, essentially kind of recapping the learnings from the podcast. And this is actually really great because it helps to boost the SEO value on the website as well, which is something that I don't think a lot of people consider, but also adds a different type of content to it. You know, some people definitely prefer video, but other people prefer to just sit down and read a blog. So you can see that this slide is pretty crowded. There's a lot of content here, you know, but that kind of goes back to what David was saying, which is we took this one video recording that, you know, was about half an hour long, and we were able to turn it into a bunch of different pieces of content that all serve slightly different purposes and give people, you know, the option to consume it however they prefer.
Yeah. Tucker, even as I look at this, it looks like a lot of work to put all this together. And can you just talk about the skills on your team and what it takes to do all this pieces? Because you've got a lot of skills involved here. And how do you think about the skills of the team?
Yeah, we incorporate a bunch of different skills here. I think a lot of it, like I said, the video editing and the audio editing isn't super in depth, but you have to have some knowledge on the platforms that we use. So, you know, Adobe Creative Suite is always helpful. There's definitely a design element to it as well. As you can probably tell by looking at the slide, there's kind of a general look and feel to each piece of content that we have. We've kind of created a whole separate marketing in the Now brand so that when people see it, they can instantly recognize that it's a piece of our content. So, you know, design is definitely a part of that. And then just content generation in general. So like writing blogs and writing the captions, having some knowledge of social media, what types of posts work best and get the most engagement. For us on social, you know, it's super important to be tagging the guests so that they can share with their network. You know, there is a reason why it's called social media. We want it to be a very social thing that people can share with each other. But yeah, we've got a lot of different people that wear a bunch of different hats and all make it happen. So I'm not going to sit back and say that it's easy, but it's definitely well worth the time that we put into it.
Yeah, it's you make it sound easy because you're very experienced at doing it with the team, but you've got a lot of skills here. As you mentioned, we've got graphics, writing, production, video production, and then, you know, the email systems, marketing automation systems,
Right.
uploading it, connecting with different social media platforms, YouTube, podcast platforms. There's a lot of steps in the
Landing page
process.
production. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's exciting. So kind of having a clear, consistent checklist makes it possible for us to be efficient at doing this. So if you're doing this yourself, you got to think about creating learning all of these platforms, getting expertise in all these skill sets, and then having a very efficient checklist and production process to make it happen. Otherwise, you could spend a year doing just like what we do for one episode. We do this every week for for our episodes for Marketing in the Now podcast. But if you're doing this for yours, you've got to think about making it super efficient, or it can eat you alive, right?
Yeah, definitely took some time to refine the process. I think that's super important. Or else, like you said, if you're kind of, disorganized and trying to make all of this happen, it can be pretty time consuming. So
Yeah. The other thing that impresses me, Tucker, about the way your team works is just the quality control on this. Because I get nervous when I, send one email to one person, right? So, I used to think I probably haven't ever sent an email without a typo, but
Mhm.
you are doing this at scale for many companies, and creating a lot of content. So
Mhm.
I'm just super impressed with the quality control that goes into this. So making sure that there's no typos, you're sending it to the right platforms, it's going out the right timing. It's just impressive that you're able to do that. So good job.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a key piece.
Mhm.
So lots of pieces here. So what are the benefits if you're presenting this to your management, or kind of talking to the CEO about why should they get involved in this? So I think there's a couple things that you might want to really think about. One is that it really promotes the CEO, the founder, the CTO, whoever your thought leader is, as an industry expert, and you're building up the brand of that person, which will help the brand of your company. So that's really important. And then it's also going to help him or her build relationships with the people that they're interviewing, with the vendors, with the partners, maybe with some other senior executives within the company. So you're going to build those relationships because you're going to be having this strategic conversation, and that's going to help build the connection between the CEO and other strategic partners that they might want to get to know. And then as you promote that, it's going to promote your connections between your companies as well. It also means you're focused on big ideas, important ideas that the CEO, the CTO, and others can think about. So you're taking the content that you're doing up a big level from maybe some low level content that maybe more junior people in your organization are brainstorming and just putting out today. In other words, you're taking the content production from a check the box, yeah, we got a blog out this month, check, to really a thought leadership piece that's really going to be significant or interesting to your market. A big advantage of this process, it dramatically lowers the cost to create all this. So you're not kind of doing one. If you did each of these as a one-off with a separate idea, it would be 5 times as expensive. So you can lower the cost, and your cost might be the number of internal employees that are doing it, or if you're hiring an agency, the cost for an agency to do it. But we can do a lot of this content at a much lower cost than if you were commissioning each piece separately. And then ultimately, it's going to build your brand, driving great engagement, and create leads and drive sales. So that's really how you're going to measure it. You got to have a system to maybe track all of that. So that's really the key piece there. Tucker, we talked about some of the big ideas. You live and breathe this every day. What are some essentials that you want people to remember as they try to do this or try to engage in this process?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is to not overthink the content. I think a lot of people will kind of go through rounds and rounds of edits and kind of hyperfixate on every detail. And sometimes it'll take weeks and sometimes months to create a single piece of content. And, you might miss the window of opportunity to capitalize on a certain trend. So I like to say, like, don't sacrifice the good for perfect. But the kind of the process that we go through, I think a big thing is creating a bunch of different options for people to consume the content. Because whether people recognize it or not, they develop certain preferences of the type of content that they consume. And that can be based on factors like attention span. Like some people like watching short clips, and other people, like to listen to podcasts while they're commuting. So kind of, maybe understanding your target audience and seeing if there's a specific type of content that they resonate best with. And then kind of part of our process, you saw that a lot of the content ties together, specifically with the social media clips. It's short form content, but it's being used to promote the medium and long form content. So we've got an Instagram reel that's telling you, hey, if you're interested in this, we've got a full 30-minute podcast on this. Or, hey, if you only have 5 to 10 minutes, we've got a blog written on it. So I think it's really important to kind of check off each one of these boxes instead of just creating one format and expecting that to kind of do the trick for everything.
Great. Yeah, that's super helpful, Tucker. Thank you. And that's just very practical advice for people to think about this. Well, Tucker, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for joining. Hopefully, as you've listened to this, if you're the audience, this has helped you think about taking your content marketing to the next level, taking it to a thought leadership level, and getting it to a place where you're creating a lot of derivative content that's powerful and will make a big difference for your organization. So thanks for joining today. And we're going to pause here the recording. And then if you have any questions, we'll stay on the line.